Hare Krishna. Om Ajnana-timirandhasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyat Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we'll move on to chapter 2 now. So chapter 2 is a second longest chapter in Bhagavad Gita. The longest chapter in Bhagavad Gita is last chapter, 18th chapter, but this one, chapter 2, has 72 verses. And the name of the chapter is Contents of the Gita Summarized. In Sanskrit, it is also called Sankhya Yoga. And we will see why. So towards the end of the chapter 1, we saw that Arjuna has kept down his weapons. And he said that I do not want to fight. And of course, this is live telecast through Sanjaya to Dhritarashtra. And hearing this, Dhritarashtra must be actually getting very, very happy that he is the main warrior on Pandava's side. And if he is not fighting, of course, then Dhritarashtra is thinking that my sons are going to now win. So that is why then Sanjaya started speaking and explaining to Dhritarashtra that how Krishna, Lord Krishna, is inspiring Arjuna to fight. So it is, the war is not over yet. It has just begun. So this chapter, Srila Prabhupada has called as Contents of the Gita Summarized, because Gita talks about various different yogas, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and main concepts are covered briefly in this chapter. Some of the concepts are explained elaborately, but for example, Bhakti is only touched upon. But you can find everything there in this chapter. Most of the concepts are covered in this chapter as well as in the last chapter as well. That is why Srila Prabhupada has named this as Contents of the Gita Summarized. So we'll start. So second verse itself of this chapter, Lord Shri Krishna starts speaking. But it is interesting how it is mentioned. For example, when Dhritarashtra was speaking this first verse, it was said Dhritarashtra Uvacha. When Arjuna started speaking, it was saying Arjuna Uvacha. When Sanjay started speaking, it was mentioned Sanjay Uvacha. But when Lord Krishna started speaking, it was not said that Krishna Uvacha. It was said Shri Bhagavana Uvacha. So why it is mentioned there? Because when Lord is speaking, Lord Krishna is speaking, it is not an ordinary person who is speaking. And people in future should not say that just like I am speaking, this person is speaking, that person is speaking, just like Krishna has also spoken something. So why should I take seriously? That is why it is said, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, to explain to all of us that these are not the words of an ordinary person. These are the words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhagavan means the person who has the 6 opulences. And I would recommend all of you, if you haven't yet read, then to read the purport of this second verse of the second chapter. Srila Prabhupada elaborately explains who is Bhagavan and what is the definition of Bhagavan. But for now, because we are just covering overview, we will move on. So Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. So as soon as Lord starts speaking, he chastises Arjuna. As a friend he is chastising. He's saying kutasva kashmalamidam vishame samupasthitam anarya jushtam aswargyam akirti karam Arjuna. So he's chastising in a way, rebuking him, saying that, oh Arjuna, how are these impurities coming into you? Kutasva kashmalamidam vishame samupasthitam. These are not actually like you. And this is not like you. And on top of that, if you behave like this, it will be anarya jushtam aswargyam akirti karam Arjuna. So people in these three worlds, it will lead to infamy for you. Ankirtikara, akirtikara, aswargya. You cannot actually reach to a higher planet. And anarya jushtam aswargyam. Anarya jushtam means it is not befitting for a man who knows the value of life. So that is how he chastised. But then Arjuna started talking about one more reason. So he started saying, he gave the reason. He's saying that, oh Krishna, if I fight and if I win, then that means I would have killed all the relatives. That means there is no enjoyment for me. And if I fight and lose, that means I have got killed in the war, so there is no enjoyment for me. If I not fight, then I will be living by begging. I'll have to go to the forest and I can live by begging. But that will bring aswarga and akriti, as you are saying. So that means no enjoyment. So I am into a situation where if I fight, there is no benefit. If I do not fight, there is no benefit. So I am in a situation where no matter what I do, there is going to be a problem for me. But the good thing that Arjuna does, that he takes shelter of the Supreme Lord. But before we look at that, let's recap these 5 reasons that Arjuna has given. So compassion, enjoyment, destruction of family traditions, and fear of sinful reactions we saw in chapter 1. And in this chapter, in the beginning, first 6 verses, Arjuna is also showing that he is indecisive now. He's not able to decide what to do. Should I do this or should I do that? It doesn't look like that whatever I do, I'm going to get any benefit. So there is indecision. But the best thing that Arjuna did when there was this indecision in his mind, he took shelter of the Supreme Lord. This is very wonderful verse, and we have seen that in a few of the past sessions. Karpanya dosho pahata swabhava prichhami tvam dharma sammudha cheta yashreyashan nishitam bruhi tanme shishyasteham shadhimam tvam prapannam. So Arjuna is saying that I am now confused. I'm not able to decide. I'm losing my composure. Now I am your disciple. Shishyasteham shadimam tvam prapannam. I am your disciple and a soul surrender unto me, unto you. So please instruct me. And he has asked for that, give me this long term. What is long term beneficial for me? What is shreyas for me? He's not saying that I want to know what is prayers. Tell me now, what can I do immediately? No, he's saying that what is long-term beneficial for me. So that is what Arjuna has asked Lord Shri Krishna. What can we learn from this verse? We have also elaborately talked about this verse. So I'll very briefly talk about it and then move on. So the most important part that we can learn from this verse is that we have to take shelter of a guru when we are confused about our duties or spiritual duties. We have to ask for help, and this is the starting point of our spiritual life. And this guru should not be an ordinary person. He should be coming from a bona fide parampara, a disciplic succession that we were talking about in the first session that we started talking about Bhagavad Gita. That he should be coming from a disciplic succession which is directly connected to the Supreme Lord Krishna himself. And this person should have realized the knowledge of scriptures. What is the meaning of realize the knowledge of scriptures? That means he has studied it and he is implementing it in his life, and through that he has got this realization of that knowledge. So the practical application or that he has also understood. So spiritual topics require a teacher. Not only actually spiritual topics require a teacher, anyone and everyone and anything that we want to learn, that also requires a teacher. In schools and colleges, we see that a teacher gives us the knowledge. Even if something simple like you want to learn some sports, or you want to learn some music or anything else that you want to learn, you generally take shelter of a teacher. Then why not for progressing in your spiritual life? If you want to progress in your spiritual life, you should take shelter of a spiritual master, and that is how we will move ahead. And then when we actually find a spiritual master, we should ask, what is long term beneficial for me? What is the spiritual solution for my material problems? So as soon as um, Arjuna has surrendered like this, Krishna accepts the position of his guru and then starts giving him the knowledge, spiritual knowledge. And the first thing that he talks about is, you are not this body, you are a spirit soul. Why this is important and why this is foundational knowledge is that without knowing who you are, you cannot even know what activities you are supposed to do. If you think that you are this body, then all our activities will be focused or and related to this body. But if you understand that you are not this body, but you are a spirit soul, then you can understand that your activity should also be focused related to this spirit soul. And that is why Lord Shri Krishna starts talking about Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara tatha dehantara praptir dhiras tatra namuhyati. So Lord is saying that as the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. This is very fundamental, that we see that the soul is passing from boyhood to youth to old age. And similarly, what is going to happen is, just like the soul is traveling like that, at the time of death, the soul is going to move into another body. And at that time, whatever is our desire that is there, he is going to acquire a body accordingly. Whatever activities we have done in the past in that life, that will decide what desire we have at the time of death. And similarly, then we will get the body of an animal, of a bird, of a human being, of a tree, or whatever, like that. And then the Lord starts explaining that all these soldiers or kings, your friends, relatives, they are also spirit souls. Not only you are a spirit soul, but everyone is a spirit soul. And if they are the spirit soul, they are not this body, then they are not actually going to die. Why? Because they are eternal. The soul doesn't die. Soul is eternal. Soul is indestructible. It cannot be cut into pieces. It cannot be burned by fire. It is insoluble. It cannot be withered by wind. Nainam chindanti shasrani, nainam dahati pavaka, na chaina kledayantyapo, na shoshayati maruta. So it is unborn, it is invisible, it is inconceivable, it is situated in the heart. From that, the consciousness is coming. And there are many other attributes of the spirit soul, Lord Shri Krishna explains to Arjuna. So, based on all of that, then he concludes that because they are all spirit souls and the spirit souls are indestructible, you cannot kill the spirit soul. So, why to lament? He also explains that this body is temporary, and even if you want to save the body, you cannot save it. And even if you want to kill the soul, you cannot kill it. So, just to actually save the temporary, why you're thinking of not doing your duty? So, similarly, then he also he has tried to explain to him that there is no need for lamenting for the body. So the first argument that Arjuna had given, that he has refuted by mentioning that you are not this body but a spirit soul. Then he also refutes the other arguments like enjoyment or sinful reaction. He turns that completely on its head. very, very beautifully. So we saw this, that Arjuna gave these arguments that no matter what I do, there is going to be no enjoyment for me. If I fight and win, if I fight and die, or if I do not fight, he sees no enjoyment in that. But then Lord explains to him the real spiritual knowledge. And by he explains to him that if you fight and if you win, that means you got the entire earthly kingdom. That means you are going to enjoy. But if you fight and you lose, but because you are doing your varnashram dharma, which is your kshatriya duty, and any kshatriya who is fighting in the war and he dies, then he's going to go to the heaven. That means heaven you can enjoy. But if you do not fight, that means you are not doing your prescribed duty. And not doing prescribed duty is actually a swarga and a kirtikara. And it is even worse than death. And it is sinful and there will be no enjoyment. So very clearly, Lord Krishna describes what is actually sinful and what is going to give him happiness. So Lord is trying to explain to him, by doing your prescribed duty, you are going to become happy. If you do not do your prescribed duty, then it is going to be sinful and you are not going to enjoy. Then he further explains that what is this prescribed duty? What is the dharma? Now he explains that the dharma is of two types. Swadharma is explained that it is of two types. Srila Prabhupada explains very wonderfully in this purport. Again, if you haven't read the purport very carefully, I would say that go and read this purport of 2.31 again. So there are two types of swadharma are mentioned: material duty and the spiritual duty. Now the problem that we generally see, that we are either totally on this material duty side or on the spiritual duty side. We are on two extremes. We forget about all spiritual and completely focused on our material things, or we give up everything and just we focus on spiritual things. Now both are extremes. But the Lord is asking Arjuna to not go to these extremes. His recommendation is to find a balance. So how can we find the balance? Now it is very simple, and if I when we actually discuss this, it will make very simple. Very, it will start making sense. The balance is, or balance can be achieved by fulfilling our material duties, by keeping an eye on our ultimate goal. If our focus is on the ultimate goal of our of the bhakti yoga process, the ultimate goal is to actually develop love for the Supreme Lord and go back to Godhead, our original home in the spiritual world. So if that is the goal, then while doing our material duties, we will always think that by doing this work, am I going to progress towards my goal or not? And that is how we can find the balance. So do those things which are going to help you progress in your path, in your spiritual path, and don't do those things which are not going to actually help you in that progress. And that is how we can achieve the balance. We can do our duties towards our friends, family, relatives, but with an eye towards the ultimate goal, ultimate aim that we have, which is our spiritual goal. So Arjuna starts wondering that how does this self-realized person behave? What is the role model? You're talking about all this theoretical knowledge, but tell me in the practical terms, how this Sthita Prajna, or the person whose mind and intelligence is fixed, how does this person behave? And he asked a very wonderful question in the 54th verse of 2nd chapter. He's saying, Sthita prajnasya ka bhasha samadhistasya keshava sthitadhi kim prabhasheta kim asita vrajeta kim. So multiple questions he asks. And then Lord Shri Krishna explains in the remaining chapter 50, verse number 55 onwards to 72 verse, all this characteristic of a self-realized person. Who's the role model? Now, a self-realized person, he actually restrains. First thing that he is mentioned, that he restrains his senses like a tortoise. Why he's steady? Because he's steady because he's not engaging his senses very loosely in sense gratification. How he's controlling? The example, Lord gives an example of a tortoise. Just like when the tortoise sees that there is some enemies attacking, then he will withdraw all his limbs inside that shell that he has. And that is how he protects himself. Similarly, a self-realized person as well, when he sees that there is some attack of Maya on him, then he will actually restrain his senses by going in the under the shell, and he will withdraw his senses from the sense objects, and he will protect like that. But it is very difficult to protect himself like that unless he has received a higher taste. Otherwise, what will happen is Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehinam rasavarjam rasopyasya param drushtva nivartate. If we haven't restricted, if we have just restricted the senses from the sense enjoyment, but our mind is not detached from the sense enjoyment, then what will happen is the taste for sense enjoyment will be there. And we can actually remove this taste of sense enjoyment only by getting the higher taste. For example, somebody is eating something, like a child is eating dirt. Then the mother can actually 10 times tell that, oh, don't eat the dirt, don't eat the dirt, but it will not work. But then if the mother gives a gulab jamun to the child, then by eating the gulab jamun, he'll say, this is much better than the dirt that I am eating. So next time he feels hungry, he will go to the mother and say, give me that gulab jamun. Because now there is a higher taste that he has received. Similarly, we can also move on from our material sense enjoyment into the spiritual sense engagement by actually getting the higher taste. And that higher taste we can get by engaging our senses in spiritual activity, like using the sense of eating into eating prasadam, by engaging hearing sense by chanting, and all these things that we have discussed, ABCD. Then even a person with discrimination and endeavor find it difficult. And I would recommend you to read verse number 62 and 63, that dhyato vishayan pumsa sangasteshu pajayate. Very wonderful verses. It explains that how the person, by focusing on sense objects, how he falls down. So there is a chain, step by step chain is given in verse number 62 and 63. So how do you succeed? By fixing the mind on Krishna. This is also a very wonderful verse which is coming in this section, which is verse number 66. Nasti buddhir ayuktasya na chayuktasya bhavana na chabhavyatah shantir ashantasya kutar sukham. So how you can become peaceful and happy? So it is said that by engaging your mind and intelligence on Krishna, on the Supreme Lord, then you can actually get the peace, peacefulness, and then you will get sukham. Now, what will happen if one doesn't fix his mind and intelligence on Krishna, but on something else? Then, even if one sense is engaged in something else than Krishna, then what will happen is, it is explained in 67th verse. It is said that as a strong wind sweeps away a boat on the water, even one of the roaming senses on which the mind focuses can carry away a man's intelligence. So that is why it is said that all of our senses, we should try to engage in Krishna's service. And by doing that, we can progress. And that is explained in this verse number 70. This is also very wonderful verse. This second chapter has so many wonderful verses. This is one of my favorite chapters, and we can go on and on talking about it. Apuryamana achala pratishtham samudramapa pravishanti yadvat tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve na shanti mapnoti na kama kami. So it is explained that this self-realized person is like an ocean. Now the ocean, all these rivers are coming into the ocean, but still the ocean is always filled, but always still. It is not that it actually increases its level just because some more water is coming. So it is explained that a person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires. So this coming, rivers coming are compared to this, or sorry, flow of desire is compared to this rivers that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled but is always still. And such a person can alone achieve peace and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. So Lord Krishna has clearly explained that those people in this world who are trying to actually engage their senses to actually fulfill their desires, they are not going to become peaceful and happy. But those people who are engaging their mind and intelligence on the Supreme Lord Krishna, those people are going to be peaceful and happy. So I would request all of you to meditate a lot on this chapter. There are many sections or many areas that we did not cover. Like, for example, Lord talks about Sakama Karma or Nishkam Karma Yoga. All of that we haven't covered. But I will suggest that you read the translations purport of this chapter. I want to summarize this chapter by showing you this slide. So, if we actually see a person's mentality, that many people, if we put that onto x-axis, so there are two extremes on that. Some people are thinking that completely I am this body, and some people are thinking that I am the spirit soul. But they go further and they think that I am the spirit soul and I am the servant of the Lord. So that is the x-axis. And the y-axis is how they are behaving. So this is x-axis was what is their thinking, and using that thinking, what they are doing actually. Are they actually living a material life or are they living a godly life? Are they putting all their effort into sense enjoyment, or are they actually living a life of higher taste where they are connecting and as using the senses they are serving the Supreme Lord? And then in these four quadrants, we can put various people. The easiest one is the materialist. Now, materialist is thinking that I am this body and everything that I see is for my own enjoyment. And he's trying to use everything for his own enjoyment. So he falls into this third quadrant. Then the person who's doing karma kandas or sakama karma, he's having this conception that I am a spirit soul, but it is not completely developed to the level that I am the servant of the Lord. So as you can see that he has moved from this I am this body to here, and he is doing some activities, but most of his activities are for his own sense enjoyment still. But why he is higher? Because he's using the scriptures for his own sense enjoyment. So he's using the path given by the Supreme Lord for his own enjoyment. So that is why he's higher on the y-axis. Then what about a karma yogi? Karma yogi is falling into Nishkama karma yogi is falling into quadrant 1. He has understood that he is not this body, he is the spirit soul, is servant of the Lord, so he's further on the right side on the x-axis. At the same time, he is also living a godly life. But he's still not the highest because he's still attached to the activities that he's doing and he's not completely surrendered. Whereas a devotee or a sthita prajna who is at the highest level because he has understood that he is a spirit soul, he's servant of the Lord, and he is actually using all his senses in the service of the master of the senses. And I have taken a little bit liberty to make that Sita Prajna as a devotee because the Sita Prajna can be at a various levels. But I have put him at the highest level of a devotee and explained like that. So this is how we can actually see the positions of various people in this quadrant when they're thinking and in their activities. So please be a sthita prajna, be a self-realized person by following the instructions given by the Supreme Lord. Supreme Lord is not only talking to Arjuna, but he's talking to all of us. Okay. So we will stop here. Okay. Hare Krishna.
Jai.
Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai.